Hello, everyone. Happy Saturday. I hope you are well, and I hope you had a wonderful, restful day. I know I did. I am so excited about worship tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. on Facebook Live. I have an adult Sunday school and fellowship hour for my Hope folks at 9:30 a.m. We've got children's Sunday school at 1 p.m. and youth group at 4 p.m. And so lots of wonderful things going on tomorrow in the life and ministry of the church. Today, again, was just a really restful day in the Dornish household. And I think after this recording, Russ and I are going to take our dogs on a walk outside because the weather is just lovely. So today for our daily devotional, we are actually ending our final discussion on the seven churches in Revelation. There are seven churches at the very beginning of the book of Revelation that are spoken about, that are given a letter, a prophetic word from the Lord. And this last church is the church in Laodicea. And this church is actually my favorite because I did a paper on the Church of Laodicea when we were in Turkey and Italy with my Denver seminary and my professor, Dr. Dave Mathewson. And so I know probably the most about this church in Laodicea and sort of, the play on words, the historical background that just make the letter and the words just so much more rich. So hear these words from Revelation 3, starting in verse 14. And to the angel of the church in Laodicea write, the words of the Amen, the faithful and true witness, the beginning of God's creation. I know your works. You are neither hot nor cold. So because you are lukewarm and neither hot nor cold, I will spit you out of my mouth. For you say, I am rich, I have prospered, and I need nothing, not realizing that you are wretched, pitiable, poor, blind, and naked. I counsel you to buy from me gold refined by fire, so that you might be rich, and white garments, so that you might clothe yourself, and the shame of your nakedness and may not be seen, and salve to anoint your eyes so that you might see. Those whom I love, I reprove and discipline. So be zealous and repent. Behold, I stand at the door and knock. If anyone hears my voice and opens the door, I will come into him and eat with him, and he with me. The one who conquers, I will also grant him to sit with me on my throne, as I conquered and sat down with my Father on his throne. He who has an ear to hear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches. So there's so many interesting things in this. The first couple things that I want to say is what the economic industry was all about. So the city in Laodicea was one of the main cities in this area and now what is modern day Turkey. And they were known for two things. One, they made a lot of money and they were very wealthy because of the sheep that produced really soft black wool. So the sheep that were grazing all over the area of Laodicea were producing wool, and the wool made clothes, fabulous clothes. And so that was a huge part of their economy, was the wool and the clothing industry. The other thing that they were known for, which not only received a lot of money and financial backing for the city, their economy was booming, but also it was just a part of pride, was the fact that they had a school of medicine there, and optometry, eye medicine. So they had a lot of ancient world-renowned doctors and people who were studying medicine, specifically healing blindness, and a lot of eye regimens and treatments for various eye diseases. So that is very important to note when Jesus says, you are poor, blind, and naked. So I want us to take that in verse 17. Well, here's the thing. Laodicea was incredibly wealthy with earthly riches, and they were incredibly intelligent when it came to knowledge such as optometry, medicinal purposes, treatments, all sorts of things like that. And they even had an eye salve that had all sorts of healing properties on what people would do if they were starting to develop glaucoma and things of that nature. So in the ancient world, people would come from all over. Their doctors were so famous, but they were super lukewarm in their faith. So again, earthly, they had all these things going for them. They actually had so much money that there was a horrible earthquake that happened in Laodicea. And the Roman government was like, we can give you aid to help rebuild the city. And they denied it because they had too much pride. So they just used their own money and they were like, we can rebuild the city on our own. We don't need a handout. And so again, just like incredibly prideful, incredibly just standing on their earthly knowledge, their earthly wealth, but super, super just spiritually lukewarm. Now, I want us to talk about the lukewarm portion too, because that's fascinating. So again, Laodicea is this city that was in between two other cities, Hierapolis and Colossae. Here's the thing. Laodicea was the only city in the Lycus Valley by the Lycus River that had to have their water piped in. And so they didn't have their own water source, but they relied on cities that were nearby, like about 6 to 10 miles away, that would pipe in their water for them. Well, Hierapolis and like high up, and I remember actually going to the hot springs in Hierapolis again with my seminary class and my family and looking at the rich mineral water. It was like really white because of all the healing properties. So Hierapolis had hot springs. Again, hot water. It was wonderful. It was good for the soul. People would go and it would help them with their aches and their pains. People still go to hot springs for the healing properties. So that water was being piped in. Okay. Then there was another city about 6 to 10 miles away, Colossae, and that was the aqueduct. And they were piping in water from, in Colossae, really cold, refreshing, just that amazing like spring water that you were like, oh, this tastes so good on a hot day. Well, there were a couple of theories. One, either by the time the water got to Laodicea, it had become kind of like gross and lukewarm, or with the piping and the, again, like the engineering of like the water engineering, the two of like the piping hot water and then the springs, like the cool water, kind of mixed and combined to form sort of lukewarm water. Either way, we know the two cities were piping in the water, and we know that once it got to Laodicea, and however that manifested, it wasn't good. There was nothing healing about it, like it was in Hierapolis. There was nothing refreshing about it, like it was in Colossae. It was just kind of blah. So here's the word that Jesus has for the people of Laodicea, and this is how we can apply it to our lives today. Are we all in for Jesus or not? That's the big idea of this last letter from the Church of Laodicea. Are we all in or not? Are we a person who is all about the Lord, all about worship, all about compassion and justice and generosity and faithfulness and trusting God? Or are those just the things that we say? Or are those just the things that we like really want to believe about ourselves, but we know deep down aren't true? Okay. So again, it's all about, I want these daily devotionals to also be about taking some personal inventory of our hearts and our lives, and just doing check-ins with how are we? How is it with our souls, as John Wesley would ask. And that is just such a wonderful Wesleyan small group question. How is it with your soul? So are you in a place where you're saying to yourself, to your people, I'm super generous? But man, like when you pull out your checkbook or your credit card bill statements, it's kind of all about you. Okay. Are you one of those people that's like, oh my gosh, I've done this totally. I'm going to spend all of this time in quarantine, like reading. I'm going to do all of this stuff. I just really want to like grow in knowledge. Or are you just like watching a lot of TV? Man, I've been so guilty of that. So it's that idea of like, are we all in or not? Because we are effective, refreshing, healing when we truly are a disciple of Christ. When we're kind of in that middle lane of like, I don't know, like partially, I'm going to go to church maybe like once a year, maybe not, like sort of be involved. I don't know. Like, I know I probably should get more involved in my church family, but like, it's fine. We're just so busy, we just don't have time. Like, that is, again, just what Jesus is talking about not being effective. And what's worse is it's not just not being effective as a disciple, but you're missing out on the gift of discipleship. And again, that individual relationship with Jesus. The very end of Revelation chapter 3 talks about with Laodicea that Jesus is standing at the door knocking. And so you picture yesterday when we talked about the church in Philadelphia and how it was like, God's sovereignty and God is going to open a door that no one can shut. Well, this, were the play on words and the idea is Jesus is at the door knocking, and we, with our free will and our ability to choose, can come to the door and invite him in or not. So if we want to be all in for Jesus, Jesus is standing at the door knocking, and we can invite him in for a meal, to sit and to fellowship with us, to have a wonderful relationship with Jesus, or not. But my hope and my prayer is that during this study of the 7 churches in Revelation and the letters that they received from John on the Isle of Patmos, we would see a lot of ourselves in the churches of Revelation, both good, bad, righteous, ugly, all of the above. And that we would know that there is discipline happening to these churches because of love. Jesus says that also towards the end of Revelation chapter 3, that like, I discipline you because I love you. To those whom I love, I show reprove and discipline. So be zealous and repent. So there is so much time for us to really reprioritize our life. That's been one of the wonderful things that I've heard over and over and over again come out of this quarantine, is that people are really starting to realize like, wow, I need to kind of reassess like what I'm valuing, what I'm reprioritizing. My schedule was so packed before of things that weren't life-giving, and I want to kind of come out of this quarantine when it's time, kind of different, with a different set of things that I value. And so my prayer and my hope is that you will remember to put Jesus as your highest priority, not only because that is what Jesus wants, and Jesus is not going to force you, but Jesus wants your heart and your whole heart to be all in, but also because that is how you will live life and life abundant. That is how you will experience true joy. That is how you will experience true peace. All of those things that we search for, and all of those things that the church in Laodicea was searching for in material wealth and in earthly intelligence, and all of those things of, oh, look at all the degrees I have and all the things I have. We're always going to be empty if we don't have Jesus. There is so many scholars have said it's like a God-sized hole in our hearts that only the Lord can fill. So I love you all. I hope you have a great rest of your Saturday, and I hope you join us for worship tomorrow. Bye.